Welcome to Season 4 of the Undetected Narcissist Podcast. Your host, Angela Meyer, is here to bring you clarity if you are stuck in confusion, self-doubt, or feel lost without a sense of direction. This podcast is extremely different because Angela comes from a place of wisdom, compassion, and has been able to forgive the unforgivable. She's a mental health professional, trauma-informed, human consciousness guide, and empowerment strategist. She knows one can't truly heal and recover when one is stuck in hate, anger, and fear. One must rise above it, find meaning, understanding, compassion for oneself and the toxic people within our lives. This season is about self-empowerment, self-realizations, and transformation. There is always a blog post supporting this information, so please visit undetectednarcissist.com. So get ready to learn about yourself, others, and find a way to truly live and thrive once again. Enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Undetected Narcissist. Today we are going to be discussing the mislabeling of codependency and generational exile trauma. Often friends, family members, toxic partners, therapists, and even pop psychology lumps many relational survival patterns under the umbrella of codependency. But what I'm going to discuss today isn't about overfunctioning for another person, enmeshed emotional identities, or a compulsive need to fix. It's about basic survival, period. I must now give an issue a trigger warning, as what I'm about to share may raise a concern for parents. If this information resonates with you, please don't hesitate to connect with your child and have a heart-to-heart conversation. I mean, what I'm going to talk about, I've been thinking hard about this. This should be taught in high school before kids go off to college. This is serious stuff. And this is a silent epidemic of generational trauma that people do not discuss, but we must. Therefore, my best friend insisted that I share her story to support you listeners. To begin, I need to start with the words of a best friend's daughter. I didn't know I could move back home. Like most people, we don't want to disappoint our parents. So we mask and pretend that everything is rosy, when in reality it is not. We take fake selfies and post them online, pretending life is beautiful, when in fact it isn't. We can attend family gatherings, birthdays, holiday get-togethers, pretending to be happy and in love while harboring our true feelings. Still, it's all a facade to protect the family from our internal suffering and shame. The truth is, this limiting belief and behavior can hurt us and be confusing when one finally comes clean to someone they love, as you will soon learn. We need to stop masking, pretending, protecting, and allowing our internal shame to keep us trapped in toxic relationships when our soul and heart are screaming for help. For about a few months ago, very short time actually, my best friend shared her daughter's trauma story. I saw the little girl take her first breath and witness the unconditional love this single parent mother had for her. When she left home at 19, life looked bright and beautiful. She was so proud of her. She met a nice man, a few years her senior, and moved into his townhouse. And then later, they bought a house together. Now that they owned a house together, she felt obligated to marry him. Yet things went downhill over the years, and behind closed doors, she was being groomed to do sexual things no innocent, passive person should, ruining her friendships and sense of self. So her daughter carefully kept her daily shame, pain, and trauma hidden from everyone, even her closest friends, not for months, but for 10 years. To cope with her unbearable reality, she developed a few unhealthy, addictive escape behaviors to survive. She had a limiting belief as soon as she left the home she would never be able to return. And we don't know why she thought this way, but she did. This was every parent's worst nightmare. When things were extreme, instead of staying at a friend's house or asking her mother for help, she would go to a shelter or live in her car. She had no idea that there were so many other options available to her. And as we cried together at the horror of what this innocent young woman experienced and endured, I had the realization that her daughter didn't know she could move back home. My elevator pitch has always been that when an excited young person leaves the nest, they are diving into the deep end of the ocean. Some will swim and others will sink. And wouldn't it be nice if we taught our children how to build a boat, or when we stumble upon someone drowning, to at least give them a life vest? Because my best friend's daughter was drowning. I know there are exceptions, as some kids need and want to leave the nest, and it would benefit everyone. However, this is not the case with my best friend. Currently in the United States, we have the largest homeless population. According to the National Alliance of End Homelessness, it has a record high of 771,480 people experiencing homelessness in the United States during 2024. That is an 18% increase from 2023. This trend is expected to continue to rise due to the ongoing unaffordability crisis. What is even more scarier is that youth and young adults from the age range of 13 to 24 face significant rates of homelessness. I chatted with one friend and we noticed a pattern. Yes, a pattern. Asian, Russian, and other ethnic cultures stick together as a community, support one another. Yet white Americans have passed down what I like to call generational exile trauma. Here's the percentage. 75% are white, 19% are Hispanic, and 14% are African American. This might explain why the majority of people I see on my streets are white Americans, because there is no family cultural community in some homes. Once the child leaves the nest, that's it. It explains why these young adults develop addictive behaviors to cope with their dark reality of being abandoned and rejected by their families. Now back to my friend. We scratched our heads, wondering why. Then we came to this realization. Her mom always had open arms for her daughter, but the self-loathing and shame prevented her from having the courage to express that she was struggling in a toxic relationship. She knew it would shatter and crush her mom, so she stayed silent. She even at one point thought of taking her own life before asking for help. No parent wants to hear this truth, but we must. As a parent and someone who's experienced abuse, that moment is heart-wrenching and universal for any parent or close friend. As a survivor of abuse and domestic violence, we do our best, our darn best, to protect our children from harm, to educate them and guide them along the right path. But when they leave the nest, all we can do is trust that they will be safe. Learning my friend's daughter's truth actually shattered me, until both our eyes were raw from tears. For days we cried. It tore us apart. The truth is, Mom is often the last person to hear or know the truth. We want to spare our parents our pain and suffering, but this is a silent epidemic, as soon you will understand. So let's pause and reflect upon our lives. What options did I never know I had? Because shame or guilt was holding me back from speaking my truth. Why is it so hard to ask for help? And can I muster the courage to tell my truth without letting my shame hold me back? Remember, shame is the lowest and most damaging emotion and thought pattern anyone can experience. It explains why she aligned with suicidal thoughts, feeling invisible, banished, feeling dead inside, numb, believing you are damaged and broken and unworthy. That is why when we are at our lowest point, We need compassion and loving support more than ever to survive. Today, this is about the shared silent echo that has been passed down from one generation to the next. In this story I am sharing, I could see it reflected within my family tree, from my mother and me, and even my daughter. It's a silent generational script passed down, and you might have it as well. Once you leave the home, you cannot return. And I say survival is not codependency. When someone doesn't believe that they can return home due to shame, unspoken rules, rejection, or generational conditioning, they may stay in a toxic relationship for financial stability. That's not codependency. It's survival under duress. Can you relate? Is this pattern in your family tree? I saw it within myself in my 20s. Then when I looked at my mom's life, I see the same exact thing. Then when my friend's daughter came clean about her abusive situation, we were all shocked. We were entirely unaware that she too followed the same pattern her mother tried to protect her from experiencing. And the thing that upset me the most is that her therapist and others labeled her as codependent. In my heart and soul, I knew this was wrong. So let's dive into the truth so we can all heal. How can we break the trauma cycle? First, naming this as survival trauma, not codependency, removes the stigma. Secondly, breaking the generational cycle means explicitly telling your children and modeling, no matter what happens, you always have a safe place to land. Thirdly, repeatedly telling your child when they leave the nest that your home always has a welcome sign above the door. If you cannot provide that welcoming sign above your door, then brainstorm options so your child knows there are options. And fourthly, healing isn't just about leaving a toxic relationship. It's about reclaiming options that were hidden by trauma. The generational thread. When I stopped and reflected on my mom, myself, and my friend's daughter, it was a powerful experience. It revealed how unspoken family systems can silently shape choices. That's right, choices. If a parent doesn't model that home is always safe to return to, a child, quote, unconsciously absorbs that exile is the price of independence. Yet independence can turn into a cage if you believe you cannot return home. At times, this belief can be modeled by friends whose parents did not offer them a safe return, because you can always keep the door open, but this unspoken habit pattern and belief can still be passed down. What my best friend did not realize was that 2 of her daughter's friends ended up living with her during high school and into college. One young girl, when she turned 18, moved into her house to finish high school because her home environment was not safe and her mom wanted her out. The other young man, after attending a trade school, tried to return home, and his father had turned his bedroom into an art studio for his girlfriend, kicking his son to the curb with no place to go. So he wondered if she accepted their reality as possibly her own when she left the nest seeking independence. Therefore, it led her to form a false belief that she could not return home either. She had the mindset that once you leave home, that's it. There is no going back, even if the home environment is loving and safe. Later, when faced with hardships in love, the child doesn't even see going back home as an option. It's been erased from their inner map. This creates what I call generational exile trauma. Each generation repeating the belief that once you leave, you cannot return. But here is my friend's truth. Her daughter consistently had an open door, but could not see it and was afraid to ask. And let's be honest here. Most of us, when we're in our 20s, thought we could handle it. We're adults now. We don't want to disappoint our parents. Yet the shame keeps us trapped when there is an escape plan. That is why I say the parent is the last one to know the truth, because this young girl went to a therapist first who mislabeled her. Then, just a few months ago, she went to a close friend of her mom's who did not warn her that her daughter needed her without any explanation before coming clean with her mom. As a parent, I have tried so hard to let my kids know that no matter what happens in life, I've got you. However, shame and guilt can prevent us from seeking help. When I was in my 20s, I couldn't move back home. My mom rented out my bedroom, but she could have still let me come home. How? I could have slept on the couch. But she was stuck in her own generational pattern. Her parents never gave her that option, and some parents think that if I endured it, so can they. In my opinion, this is wrong. So there is a difference between survival and dependency. Dependency is I need you emotionally, psychologically to feel whole, or overgive to keep you from abandoning me. Survival-based attachment is I need shelter, food, or financial safety, and I don't believe there's anywhere else to go. The behavior may look similar on the surface, staying in a bad relationship, but the roots are different. One is about identity and worth. The other is about safety and survival. Naming the misunderstanding, the therapy trap. Before we begin, I would like to briefly mention that I consulted ChatGPT to discuss this topic, as you may not find this information online. My intuition and hypothesis were correct. It was correct. Therefore, we need to discuss these issues to heal. Speaking them out loud is how we dissolve shame and bring hidden patterns into the light. This is where mislabeling does real harm. If a therapist insists you're codependent, the survivor can feel shame or misunderstood. What they actually need is recognition of the survival context, rebuilding a sense of safety and a support network, and healing the generational narrative of you can't go back home. Define the difference simply. Codependency is emotional entanglement, overfunctioning, fixing. Survival-based attachment is needing shelter, stability, safety when you believe there is nowhere else to turn. The generational trauma lens. I want to introduce the idea of generational exile trauma. The belief that once you leave the home, the door is closed. This fundamental and false belief silences options and locks people in toxic relationships. For example, I know my mom wanted to return home when she experienced domestic violence in her marriage, but her parents told her to stick it out. I know it doesn't sound terrific, but that is what women did back then. You stick it out and survive. And when she had the opportunity to get a job and could support us kids, she left. As for me, I had no place to go. When I realized I was in a toxic relationship, I wanted to go back home, but couldn't. At least I didn't have kids at the time. Yet when I spoke to my friend about her daughter, there was a moment of awakening that illustrated the cycle. That is when I realized the cost of mislabeling, because when you are being told you're codependent in these moments, it can feel like blame instead of support. What survivors actually need is safety, a network support system, permission to return home, and compassion rather than judgment, not a label. As for me, I saw the hidden thread instantly. Many people stop at the surface. This is codependency. But I had the eyes to trace it back through my friend's mother, herself and her daughter. And instead of just carrying it, I chose to clear it. If you are in the same situation, you can clear it as well. That's powerful generational healing. What I'm doing is rewriting the soul's contract of my lineage. And I'm saying this pattern ends here. My daughter and every daughter after her will know the door is always open. Rewriting the narrative. In this day and age, we all need to teach ourselves and our children how to break the cycle of unhealthy habits and thought patterns, to tell our children or loved ones explicitly, you always have a safe place to come back to. to build communities where asking for help is not shameful. It's not a shameful act. And to recognize survival strategies as resilience, not weakness. Closing reflection and guided moment. I want to offer a brief reflection practice. Take a short moment and close your eyes and think of the younger version of you, stuck in a toxic situation. Ask yourself, what would have changed if that version of you knew, truly knew, you could go home, or ask for help, or be safe? Be still and listen to the voice of wisdom within you. Now offer that younger self the words they never heard and needed to hear, such as, you are not a burden. You are safe. You always have options. Then end with hope. Breaking this generational cycle brings freedom, not just for you, but for everyone after you. If you can relate to this information, please muster up the courage to ask for support. If you know someone who is struggling and might be falsely labeled, please share this information. No one should suffer in silence because shame is preventing them from having the courage to speak their truth. And most importantly, stop pretending everything is fine when in reality it isn't. Since courage plays a significant role in seeking support or positive solutions, I have created some affirmations to help you return home to yourself safely. And if you can't return to your parents' home, this can still be used if you are staying with a friend or a shelter. It's a temporary home, and I recommend reading these daily to keep you aligned with the courage you will need, as it is easy to spiral back down into self-loathing and shame. So here are the affirmations, and if you want to go to the blog post, you can write it down. Safe return home to yourself. I am not a burden. It is safe to ask for help. I can always return to love. My worth is not defined by where I stay. Survival is not shame, it is strength. I am never truly alone. Home is not a place, it's a promise. I deserve safety, stability, and love. I can break the cycle and write a new story. My voice matters. My needs matter. I matter. Pattern clearing prayer. The door is always open. Now, when I hit rock bottom and my world fell apart, I clung to prayer. As I have said before, I'm not religious, but prayer does work. I believe in the power of prayer, and I've witnessed miracles in my own life. So I've created a clearing prayer for anyone seeking support, hope, and inspiration when life seems bleak. It's written in a way that honors your lineage while also breaking the cycle and reclaiming freedom. There are 5 patterns woven into this prayer. The first step is the opening and sets an intention. The second is naming the pattern, and the third is breaking the cycle, and the fourth is healing the lineage, and lastly is the closing of the prayer. So let's begin. Beloved Creator, Source of all love, I come before you today with a humble and open heart. I call forward my ancestors, my lineage, and all those who came before me. I honor their struggles, their survival, and their choices, and I ask for grace as I bring light to the pattern that no longer serves. I see the thread of exile that has run through my family line, the unspoken belief that once you leave home, you cannot return. Now I understand how this belief has bound us to silence, shame, and toxic survival. I see it has created suffering for my mother, myself, and for my daughter. I also know the suffering of my grandfather, father, and brother have experienced, and for all who carried it unknowingly. Today, with love and compassion, I choose to break this pattern. I release the false story that safety is conditional. Within my heart, I release the belief that survival must come at a cost. So I release the fear that asking for help makes me a burden. I speak a new truth in my bloodline. The door is always open. Home is a sanctuary, not a sentence. Support is love, not shame. We are safe. Yes, we are loved. We are free. With love as my witness, I seal this prayer, and with truth as my anchor, I walk in freedom. With grace as my guide, I choose a new path for myself and my lineage. And so it is. Amen. From abuse to recovery. This story was not easy to share. And typing these words brought me to tears. But I know it can save lives and families. And maybe end this silent generational pattern for future generations. I've included a free guided meditation and pattern clearing prayer. The door is always open. Because when we believe the door is shut, we shut out everyone, including ourselves, in getting support we need. So in love and light, Angela Meyer, Carrie Logan.